Hello, this is McD the Beast, and this is McD Sports 4 coming to you today with my SEC football predictions for the 2022 college football season. Before I continue, don't forget to hit the thumbs up. Please subscribe to your channel. Really appreciate if you do that. College football season is right around the corner. The season starts in about a little over 2 weeks. So I thought we would start getting these prediction videos in, try to get everything in before August 27th. So we'll kick it off with the SEC here. A little bit about the SEC. I think this conference is pretty deep personally, outside of two teams. I do think there might be a team or two that might do a little bit worse than what the fan base thinks they're going to do, only because of how deep this conference is. I think you're going to see a few surprises this year in this conference. And I think it's going to be a great year for the SEC. As you know, they're bringing in Texas and Oklahoma. We'll see if they bring in more teams outside of those two. Here, it looks like in 2025, I think it might be a bit earlier, though, to go ahead and try to catch up with the Big Ten because the Big Ten is bringing in USC and UCLA a year earlier. But the SEC, I do think, um, is I think the premier college football conference in my opinion as of right now. But let's get into it. Two divisions. We'll kick it off with the West. In first place in the SEC West, I have Alabama. I think they go 12-0, 8-0 in the conference. They're going to have a few tests this year. I think that road game against Alabama, not against Alabama, that road game against Arkansas, the road game against Tennessee. I look at those two games. The road game is Ole Miss as well to a bit of a lesser degree. Texas A&M coming into Alabama. Those are going to be challenging games. Even on the road against Texas in the non-conference, I think could possibly be challenging. But I think Alabama runs through their schedule 12-0. This team, you look at this team, they bring back the quarterback, Nick Saban. I mean, Nick Saban called the previous year a rebuilding year, or a retooling year. I forget the term he used, but and they lost. They were runners up. They lost in the national championship and still won the SEC. That just tells you the standard at Alabama. I think they beat everybody on their schedule personally. Will not surprise me if they lose a game somewhere, but I have them going 12-0, 8-0 in the conference. Second place, Texas A&M, 11-1, 7-1 in the conference. If you watch my college football preseason top 25 video, which by the way, go check out that video. Um, I'm very high on Texas A&M this year. I think everybody was probably a year too early. I know a lot of people were high on them this previous season, and then really pan out. I think they go 11-1, 7-1 in the conference with that loss to Alabama there on the road. They could lose a few other games. We'll see. I think overall this is kind of a big year for Jimbo Fisher. I think I know in 2020 he did, but I think he really needs a 10-2 season, possibly even 11-1 season, to go ahead and prove that hey, what he's doing at Texas A&M is working. Um, I do think this team, pound to pound, is pretty talented. I know quarterback's a bit of a question mark, um, but pound to pound, this team I think could basically go up against basically anybody, just about anybody in the country. So Texas A&M, 11-1, 7-1 in the conference. Third place in the SEC West, I have Arkansas, 7-5, 4-4 in the SEC. Their losses are to Texas A&M, Alabama, Mississippi State, BYU, and Auburn. Um, I, I think all four of the games, with the exception of the Bama game and the Texas A&M game, which is a neutral site game in Jerry World, are on the road. I do think they lose those two games against Mississippi State and Auburn on the road. And they have that weird non-conference game in October against BYU. I think they lose that as well. I'm high on BYU. I think they are a top 15 team. As if you watch my college football top 25 video, and I have Arkansas ranked too. I think they are a top 25 team. They do lose a lot on defense, which does concern me a little bit. I kind of alluded to this in the college football top 25 video. I question the scheme a little bit of the Arkansas defense with the 3-3-5 and against teams that can run it down your throat, only having 6 in the box. So in my opinion, I think Arkansas. I think they'll have a decent year. But I think 4-4 in the SEC, 7-5 overall. They'll lose that out conference game to BYU. Third place, Arkansas. Fourth place, Ole Miss, 8-4, 4-4 in the conference. Their losses are to LSU, Texas A&M, Alabama, Arkansas. Arkansas has a tiebreaker against Ole Miss despite having a better record than Arkansas in their SEC conference play. I think Ole Miss, I look at them, um, they bring in Jackson Dart. Lane Kiffin. I know they lose the offensive coordinator, but Lane Kiffin is basically the offensive coordinator there, in my opinion. Defensively, we'll see what they are. They have a few games on their schedule. Obviously, the teams they face in the SEC West. I believe the Bama game is the only home game I have them losing. It would not surprise me if Ole Miss actually wins that game. Um, but in my opinion, I just look at Ole Miss. I just don't think they have the team this year overall to just go compete for the SEC championship or even go compete for a New Year's Six bowl. But I do think they get to 8-4 in the regular season and have a chance at 9 wins, 4-4 in the conference. Fifth place, Auburn. I have Auburn going 7-5, 3-5 in the conference. The losses are to Georgia, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Texas A&M, and Alabama. So if you know Auburn, they play the toughest schedule in the country. Um, just about every year, or one of the toughest. They get the Mississippi schools on the road. I think they lose to both of those. Bama's on the road. I think they lose that game. Georgia, I honestly think Georgia would beat Auburn if it's on the moon. Honestly, I do think the game is in I think it is in Athens, if I'm not mistaken. So that game's on the road as well. The Texas A&M game I know is at home. But if you watch that game last year, Auburn's season, this is how Auburn's season went last year. It started out great. I think they were 6-2 at one point, and then they lost the final four, including the last two against South Carolina and Alabama when Bo Nix was injured, their former quarterback. I know the quarterback T.J. Finley uh, got arrested, so that's going to be an interesting situation there. But those final two games, Bo Nix was out. They lost a game against South Carolina. They probably had no business losing. And I know Brian Harson's on the hot seat. My only criticism of Brian Harsin so far since he's been at Auburn was that Alabama game. He should have elected to go for two there in that first overtime. When you're have a chance to win it, you should go for it. Especially if you're a big dog like Auburn was in that game. So that's really been my only criticism of Brian Harsin. I know some of the boosters don't like him. A few of the fans don't like him because he kind of underachieved a little bit year one with 6-7. But I think they have a crack at 8 wins. I think they sweep the non-conference, including the Penn State game. In my opinion, he'll get a big win at home against LSU. So I think Brian Harsin actually keeps his job. I did the college football coaches on the hot seat video. I said he will keep his job. In my opinion, I actually predict that he'll keep his job, and I think he will. 7-5, 3-5 in the conference for Auburn. Sixth place, LSU, 5-7, 2-6 in the conference. The wins will be against Southern, Mississippi State, New Mexico, Ole Miss, and UAB. Listen, I know if you're an LSU fan watching this, you don't like this prediction, and I get it. I really do think, though, that LSU, if you look at them, yeah, I think they're a very good talented team. I do think it's going to take a year for Brian Kelly to get acclimated to the SEC. I mean, at Notre Dame, you can sit there and play a 12-game schedule, and you really only have 3 or 4 real games. Now, that's going to change because I think Notre Dame's about to go ahead and join the Big Ten. But that you could do that in Notre Dame. LSU, whole different animal. You look at this division here in the SEC West, you're basically facing teams that are probably going to be in bowl games more likely or not. You have Florida State. I'm high on Florida State. I do have you guys losing to Florida State. I'm high on them. Maybe that's a bit bold there, but I am high on Florida State. I think you lose in the upset of the week there in week one. SEC conference play 2-6. You do beat the Mississippi schools. You do get a big win, I think, against Ole Miss, and that is a big win because Ole Miss, in my opinion, is a top 25 team. But you look at the non-conference. I think you beat Southern, New Mexico. I think you beat UAB. I know UAB tends to be one of the better teams in the Conference USA. But actually, Bill Clark, their head coach, the former head coach, actually he retired I think like a month ago. So I don't think UAB is going to be as good as maybe some previous years. But I get it if you're an LSU fan, but I think you miss a bowl game this year. That's one of my bold predictions. I think you just miss a bowl game. And also, I'm not sold on the quarterback position at all with LSU. Just throwing that out there. And then last place in the SEC West is Mississippi State, 6-6, 2-6 in the conference. I think you sweep your non-conference against Memphis, Arizona, Bowling Green, and East Tennessee State. And then I think you go ahead and beat Arkansas and Auburn at home. You look at Mississippi State, year 3 under Mike Leach. Um, we'll see if the system works. We really will. I think it's going to be kind of middle of the road for Mississippi State. It would not surprise me if they go ahead and maybe out of nowhere win 8-9 games. It just won't. But you look at the non-conference, I think it's pretty manageable. You do go on the road against Arizona, but Arizona's horrible right now. Bowling Green is a joke. East Tennessee State is an FCS. You look at Memphis; they've kind of been a disappointment the past few years. They've kind of been falling off a cliff there a little bit since Mike Norvell left. So I think, and the game's at home, so I think you at worst you'll find a way to win that game. Arkansas, Auburn at home. Um, maybe you're the underdogs in those games, but I think those are the two in the SEC that you get. You get Georgia as your other opponent. You get Kentucky every year. Your other opponent is Georgia. I do think you get Georgia at home, but in my opinion, it won't matter. I think Georgia will beat Mississippi State this year. I just think Georgia is a much better team than Mississippi State. But I do think you guys go bowling. Mississippi State, I think, does go bowling there. 6-6, 2-6 in the conference. Now the SEC East. First place is Georgia, 12-0, 8-0 in the conference. Yeah, I think Georgia wins through their schedule. Now there are 3 games, maybe 4, probably 4 games. Thinking about it, the South Carolina game, the Kentucky game, the Florida game, and the Tennessee game. Those 4 games, I know South Carolina's on the road, Kentucky's on the road, Tennessee's at home, and Florida is in Jacksonville. Those games I think can be competitive to a fault, but because Georgia does lose a lot on defense, but they're going to reload, in my opinion. So I think they run through the schedule personally. I have them going 12-0, 8-0 in the conference, going undefeated. Second place, Tennessee, 9-3, 5-3 in the conference. I'm high on Tennessee this year. Year 2 under Josh Heupel. This offense is only going to be better with Hendon Hooker there for the whole year. You go ahead. You hope the defense gets a bit better because it's year 2 under the system. The losses are to Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina. Alabama and Georgia is just better than you guys, so I don't think we'll have a problem there. But I know Tennessee fans probably are like, we're losing South Carolina on the road. Listen, you guys are either going to lose to South Carolina or LSU on the road. You're losing one of those 2 games. I went with South Carolina because I am a bit higher in South Carolina than I am with LSU. I think they're heading in the right direction. We'll get into South Carolina here in a second, but I think Tennessee they go 9-3, 5-3 in the conference. They'll win the Pitt and Florida game early in the season to really get on a roll. And I actually think they will be undefeated going into that Alabama game. So Tennessee Volunteers 9-3, 5-3 in the conference. Third place is Kentucky. They're also 9-3, 5-3 in the conference with losses to Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Georgia. Um, Kentucky has a lot of talent on the team. Mark Stoops has really done a great job developing that Kentucky program. Will Levis is projected to be a first round draft pick quarterback. I kind of disagree with that personally, but I do think he can be drafted in the NFL. I mean, Chris Rodriguez, the running back, you know this defense is going to play physical. Probably one of the most physical, if not the most physical team in the SEC. 9-3, as I said, their losses are to Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Georgia. I did give Tennessee the tiebreaker against Kentucky since the Tennessee game is in Knoxville. Georgia is just a better team than you guys. I think that was proven last year. Even though they lose everybody on defense, I don't think it really matters. They're just more talented. I know that game's in Kentucky. I think Kentucky, and it's going to be a great environment there in Lexington, but I think Georgia goes ahead and beats Kentucky there on the road. And then Ole Miss, to me, that's a pick'em game. It's in Oxford, so I gave it to Ole Miss. So 9-3, 5-3 in the conference. Fourth place is Florida, 6-6, 4-4 in the conference. I think people are sleeping on Florida a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. I know people criticize the former head coach Dan Mullen on his recruiting style, but to be honest, they still recruited pretty well compared to a bunch of other programs in the country. 6-6, 4-4 in the conference. I do think you guys lose the 2 hour conference games against Utah and Florida State. I know that Utah game's at home, but I think Utah's just it's in a much better spot than Florida right now. But I think your wins will be South Florida, Eastern Washington State, Missouri, LSU, South Carolina, and Vandy. Um, there's a few games on here. The South Carolina game at home to me is a pick 'em. I think you guys do get a big win against LSU. I know LSU's 5-7 in my opinion, but I do think it will be a big win at home for Florida there. Um, and also, I think you guys go ahead and beat Missouri in the SEC and Vandy as well. But as I said in the AL conference, it is kind of a tough schedule for Florida this year in the AL conference. So I think you guys go 2-2 in there and go ahead and lose to Utah and Florida State, but you go ahead and beat South Florida and Eastern Washington State, the better two programs there. You look around the SEC. I know the Kentucky game's at home for Florida. I just think Kentucky's in a better spot. I honestly think Kentucky should be favored going into that game, if you want my honest opinion. So, I just think Kentucky's the better team. I think Tennessee finally gets it. I'm not going to say get the monkey off their back because they did beat you in 2016, but I think they finally get over the hump and go ahead and beat Florida. Tennessee does this year. So, Florida, fourth place, 6-6, 4-4 in the conference. Fifth place is South Carolina, also at 6-6, but 3-5 in the conference, with wins against Georgia State, Charlotte, South Carolina State, Missouri, Vandy, and Tennessee. Now, as I just said, this could easily be 7-5. To me, that Florida South Carolina game is a coin flip of a game. Also, I think South Carolina probably has a chance against a Kentucky, possibly even a Texas A&M. Even though I think Texas A&M is going to be a really damn good team. The other opponent out of the West is Arkansas, that is on the road. I would lean towards Arkansas on that one. I think Shane Beamer has this program going in the right direction. They bring in Spencer Rattler at quarterback. We'll see what he does. Maybe he just needed a change of scenery. Maybe that was the case there at Oklahoma there with Spencer Rattler. We will see. I know South Carolina fans are going to be a little bit disappointed, but I honestly do think that I only gave Florida the game against you guys because it's in Gainesville. That's really the only reason why. As I said, I think that's a 50-50 game. I gave it to the home team. And I do think you guys get a big win against Tennessee at the end of the season, second and last game of the season. So, um, and I know you guys aren't good. I know I have you guys not beating Clemson this year. That is the non-conference loss. Um, if that game was in Columbia, I would probably give you guys a puncher's chance. I'm not as high on Clemson as some of these other people. Some people have Clemson at number 4. The coaches pool came out and had Clemson at number 4. I have Clemson number 9 in my top 25. I have to see it to believe it. I have to see the offense do well before I really have Clemson really skyrocket into the in my pool there. But I think South Carolina 6-6, 3-5 in the conference. Probably a more consistent season. I think you'll get out of them. But I think that honestly, it could probably even be 7-5, 8-4. But I'm going to say 6-6, 3-5 in the conference for South Carolina. Sixth place is Missouri, 4-8, 1-7 in the conference. Missouri's wins will be Louisiana Tech, Abilene Christian, Vanderbilt, and New Mexico State. You do have Kansas State in the non-conference on the road. I think you guys dropped that one. Um, Listen, you look at Missouri, they have that one very good wide receiver. That's really the only, I think, real talent that could probably go up against these big boys in the SEC. Eli Drinkwitz, I know he's recruiting well there in Missouri. he's probably honestly a recruiting class or two away. I don't know if he's going to get the time to really see it through. I'm not high on Missouri at all this year. I think this year's going to be a disappointment for Missouri. Um, you have games on the road against South Carolina, Florida. Kentucky does come into Missouri, but I think, in my opinion, I do think that Kentucky's just a better team and they're more physical, and they will go ahead and beat Missouri. I think you go on the road against Tennessee. Um, it's just tough. It really is. It's just tough for Missouri. I think your cross opponent outside of Arkansas is Auburn on the road, so I think Auburn would beat Missouri. I mean, it really is just tough for Missouri. It's a bit of a tough schedule, as I said. If they could get to 6 wins, I think that would be good for them. But I just don't see it. I'm not high on Missouri at all. 4-8, 1-7 in the conference, and then in the last place is Vanderbilt, 2-10, 0-8 in the SEC. I do think you're going the road week 1 and beat Hawaii. You have Elon on the schedule as well and beat them, but you're just going to lose the rest of your games, in my opinion, including that road game to Northern Illinois. You're defending MAC champs there, so that you're probably wondering why the hell do I have Vanderbilt losing to a MAC team, because they are the defending MAC champs there. Uh, and I forget their other non-conference game, but it must be a game where Vanderbilt's probably gonna be an underdog in. But you look at I think it might be Wake Forest if my memory serves correct. But you look at Vanderbilt. I know Clark Lee's coming out saying Vanderbilt's gonna be the best program in the country down the road. I like the optimism. They're still so far away though from really being that. We've seen James Franklin have success there, Derek Mason to a bit of a lesser degree. And Vanderbilt, they do have some players on their team that could definitely are Division One SEC players. But it's kind of bleak after the first string. I just look at Vanderbilt. I think it's just gonna be a rough year. I think they go off to a good start there at 2-0, but after that, I think it goes downhill pretty quickly. So those are the standings that I have this year for the SEC. Now to the SEC championship game. It's going to be Alabama versus Georgia, and I actually have Georgia being Alabama in the SEC championship game. I have Georgia winning the SEC this year. I think Georgia, they haven't won the SEC since 2017. They're not scared to play Saban now or go up against Alabama since they finally got that monkey off their back. And I honestly think Georgia wins the SEC. I think they're due to win the SEC in my opinion, and I do think Alabama's a little bit of a better team than Georgia overall. But I'm just gonna go with my gut feeling. I think Georgia wins the SEC. It doesn't mean I have them win the national championship again, but and that will come in a week or two. Who I have for that, but I like Georgia to go ahead and win the SEC. So that's my SEC football predictions. Comment down below. Tell me your SEC football predictions. I'm gonna try to get the Big Ten out on Friday. Hopefully. So hopefully that video will be out. Um, so can't wait for that. My team is a Big Ten team. It's the Maryland Terps. So you'll see what I have the Maryland Terps doing this year. But anyways, thanks for watching the video. Hit the thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. Greatly appreciate if you do that. This is McD the Beast signing off.